get the meeting underway. We appreciate your cooperation in this regard. For those of you who are new here tonight, Jerry's in the back. He's got beer, wine, coffee, and soft drinks, and you're welcome to take advantage of that all during the evening, as long as you do it quietly. And one thing we do want to ask, please kindly, if you would, take out your cell phones right now, hand them, no, I'm just kidding. Just getting you prepared for big government. Turn them down. Turn the volume all the way down until it says mute or vibrate or whatever, so that our videotaping and things like that will not have phone interruptions, and so you don't have to pay the bill for tonight's meeting room, which is $250. All right. So I took this job just so I got to do that. Anyway, welcome tonight. I'm Lowell Sheets, just one member of the steering committee for the local Campaign for Liberty chapter, and we are so glad to see you here tonight. I have a couple of big announcements, but I want to let's start the meeting with a word of prayer and also pledge to the flag. So could we all rise together with those hands? Let's pray. Dear Father, we humbly come before you, and we pray for your grace and your mercy and your forgiveness for all the blessings that we've taken for granted and all the things that we have not done to preserve our own freedom and acted as the citizens that we should be. We thank you for the blessings of freedom that you have bestowed upon us. We pray that we might not lose them for our children and our grandchildren and the many generations to come until you come. Bless us this day, in Jesus' name, amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated. How many here, this is their very first Campaign for Liberty meeting? Wow. Excellent. We are not going to embarrass you any further than that. But we are so glad you're here tonight. I have an announcement to make that hopefully everyone got this news, but I am sure that in a crowd this size, not everyone got this news. Our main speaker, who is scheduled for this evening, was Tom DeWeese from the American Policy Center, and he's a nationally recognized gentleman. He's going to talk to us about a lot of important issues that you're still going to hear about tonight, but he had some major health problems just in the last couple of days and is completely unable to be here, and we certainly understand that. That happens, but if any of you are here because he was coming, you have my greatest apologies. It is certainly not in our plans, or it's not what we would rather, but we're certainly glad you're here tonight. Once you hear this, we will reschedule time. Yeah, we will reschedule this for the week. So anyway, you're going to hear about some of the things that he was going to be discussing anyway. And for those of you who've been here before, you know we have some really good speakers, and we have a depth and some talent here. So you're going to hear about some very important issues, some things that should anger you, rightly so, but very important things. I'll give you a brief introduction to Campaign for Liberty. Our mission is to promote and defend the great American principles of individual liberty, constitutional government, sound money, free markets, and a non-interventionist foreign policy by means of education, issue advocacy, and grassroots mobilization. The U.S. Constitution is at the heart of what Campaign for Liberty stands for, since the very least we can demand of our government is fidelity to its own founding governing document. Thomas Jefferson spoke of binding our government down, our rulers down, but from mischief by the change of the Constitution, and we're proud to follow in his distinguished lineage. Obviously, you're here probably because you realize that if we had returned to the principles believed in by our founding fathers, our country would be a completely different place. It would return to blessings from God, it would return to freedom and liberty. But instead, those who govern our country are taking us down a path of socialism, of loss of liberty, of growing and growing and growing government. And it's not about left or right. It's about liberty and tyranny. I mean, that's what it's about. And when you read the quotes from our founding fathers, I love these from James Madison. The means of defense against foreign danger historically have become the instruments of tyranny at home. Did you say drones? If tyranny and oppression come to this land, it will be in the guise of fighting a foreign enemy. And those of you who are on Facebook, and I know that everybody's on Facebook, but the other day I saw a meme. If you know what a meme is, it's just a picture to which someone has put some cogent language that makes you think, or makes you laugh, or makes you see something in a new light. And it was just a picture of Jackie Chan. I don't know why, but anyway, it's just a Chinese guy, let's put it that way. And he's saying, all you Americans you are giving up your liberties to preserve your liberties. How can you be so stupid? I mean, think about that. I mean, there's just so much wisdom in that. Our government is asking us O'Malley is asking us to give up our liberties so we can be safe and free. That's just, it's insanity. It's complete insanity. So you're going to hear some examples of that on the state level, on the national level, and the examples are many. We could be here all night and into as by tax day if we kept giving all the examples. But we've got some great speakers tonight. Our first one is a gentleman I've come to know and appreciate just in the last couple of years. He's a great patriot. He's going to talk to you about an issue that is near and dear to all of us, and basically that's the freedom to be on the roads, to have your own property, to be basically safe from government interference when you're just driving down the road, and to be safe from corruption when you're getting tickets for something you didn't even do. Who likes to get a ticket for something they didn't do? Oh, you do? Scott? All right, Jeff Fleckenstein, come up front. We're going to talk about the speed camera update. Applause. Wild applause.
Thank you. Okay, so last month I asked everyone here who disliked speed cameras. About 3/4 of you raised your hand. So months gone by. Who here still hates speed cameras? Pretty good. All right, excellent. Actually, my update this month is short and simple. In the past month, with the help of people like you, we've been going to Delegate Maggie McIntosh and trying to get her to hear a repeal speed cameras bill. And we're really close to doing that, actually, with the help of you guys, calling and emailing and writing letters to her office. Been very good, very productive. So I wrote a quick letter that each of you can sign and put your address on, and I will mail it tomorrow from people here in Hartford County and Cecil County. And basically the letter just says, I'm writing to support Delegate Smeagol's House Bill 251, which will repeal speed cameras in Maryland. It's been assigned to your House Environmental Matters group. Please pass HB 251 so it can receive an up or down vote on the floor of the House. And again, please repeal speed cameras today by supporting HB 251. So if you would, some of you have already done this, that's great. If you would, please read the letter I wrote, and if you agree with that, most of you probably do, sign that, put your address, and I'll collect that at the end of the night. That's really all that I have on this issue. One thing I will say is that people have actually come to me and said, why are you going after this issue, that the Second Amendment is so important? And sure enough, you guys, you're right, it is. It's super important. But a tactic of the left that I found is to distract us with one issue while they try to pass bad legislation in the back door. So we can't let that happen. We have to expose them for all the issues that they're wrong on. So with that, I hope to collect a bunch of these from you at the end of the evening, and I will bring back Mr. Lowell Sheets.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. With these speed cameras, how about the people who break the speed law? Shouldn't
Right.
they be caught? People who break the speed law, the ones who usually create accidents? Do the speed cameras get them? I know they can be very bad. A lot of people
Right.
have been charged already without even having a breaking the law.
Right. Well, I think the issue is that there's a machine that's accusing you and not a human being, so it's kind of hard to fight against that.
Oh, you mean the machines now?
The machines now, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there's a machine and there's not a human being to.
I already signed it.
Well, you're awesome. Thank you. I love
Thank
you.
you. I love you too.
Yes, sir.
Well, couldn't you approach it as a job bill, more cops, less
There you go.
no, we're talking about creating jobs.
That's right. Do our part to help the economy, right? Yes, sir.
I'm just curious, why is it an environmental matters issue? I don't understand the connection.
Yeah, I'm not sure either why they assign certain issues to certain groups like that. I don't know. I'm still learning that myself. But good question. Yes. Or someone. I'm sorry, Cindy. Yes, Cindy.
They have a very specific system of assigning bills to certain committees. And if you go to Maryland Legislature's website, then you'll see that each committee has certain subject or content areas that they take. And I think traffic is an environmental for the House. So for the Senate, it would be something different.
Okay, thank you. Yes, sir.
I'd just like to say, I mean, it's government. The Defense Department spent like $5.2 million on the study of goldfish to help our democracy. So why is goldfish in the defense budget? I don't know.
Our priorities are wrong, aren't they?
Yeah.
Who is sitting over there, Ryan? Hey, please welcome Lowell Sheets.
Thanks, Chuck.
Please, please.
Where's your applause?
Oh my goodness. Obviously, we didn't really get to talk about it a lot tonight, but the speed camera issue is obviously you have no right to face your accuser when your accuser is a machine. It's basically a method for government to extract cash from their citizens. It's certainly not about safety. It's about money, and it's about control. And it's about corruption, because if you see how the speed cameras are handled in this state, probably in the whole country, the incentive is there to make them work even better than they could normally, okay? Because the people that own the cameras, the companies get paid more when they take more tickets. Obviously, the government makes more money when they take more tickets.
It's also an additional invasion of privacy.
Exactly.
One more thing.
Yeah, it's an additional invasion of privacy. Totally agree. I don't know if you know it, but if you drive through the town of Bel Air, and you were driving through there 4 months ago on a Saturday night, they can put on video everything, every turn and everywhere you went. Okay, I mean everywhere you went.
And that's still?
Yeah. What's that?
Still the case?
Oh, that's the case in Bel Air. That has nothing to do with speed cameras. That's just Big Brother. I mean, they just can follow your car wherever you went from this red light to that red light, from this street to that street. What's that?
The British raincoats.
Yeah, I mean it's like Anyway, we're living in a surveillance society, and speed cameras are just one of the issues about that. At this time, this meeting is going to be, the theme of this meeting is those who we expected to hear did not come. Tom DeWeese is not here, of course, but also one of the young ladies that does yeoman's work as far as the research on some of these issues with our government, local and state, giving away money that is really your tax money and deciding who the winners and losers are. The crony capitalism that goes on right here in Hartford County. It's disgusting, and I'm going to give you a couple of examples of it, and then I'm going to bring up a gentleman who's going to cover some of this information that actually Christina Trotta, is the young lady that I'm talking about, had produced for us. But she had spoken last year about a few bills. I'm just going to do this for an introduction, Scott. All the handouts that were proposed last year from the Hartford County Council passed. Smith's Detection got a workforce training grant for $100,000 and $650,000 and a conditional loan from the state to expand their building and create 103 new jobs. Bezerbo Label Solutions got a 3% loan from the county for $100,000 and $500,000 and a conditional loan from the state to retain 68 employees and create an additional 8 new jobs. The AFS Incorporated, the mill in Bel Air, got a 3% loan from the county for $200,000 to expand and create 7 new jobs. And then we're waiting for one more announcement, the Coles resolution, and it was just introduced February 12th, Resolution 413. I've got revolution on my mind. Scott, if you come up, and there's some things he's going to mention when you hear these workforce grants and how, oh, we're giving this money from the county because it's going to help the county and help the employees or whatever and all this stuff, and then they're funding buses to drive employees from the city out here to fill these positions that our county government, older people being put out of their homes trying to pay their taxes, the money they're using is to influence with these companies, and when you follow the circle of money, it's just disgusting. So Scott, can you come up and finish that up on Scott DeLong?
Thanks, Wolf. I don't know about you guys, but I just happen to work in banking, and when you're in banking, it's a funny thing about loans. Loans require repayment. There's payments over a certain schedule of time, and after you've made all your payments, there's no balance. Now, I don't know. My position on this is, and I'll get into this in a second, but government should not be in the business of making loans. Amen. It is not the province of government at any level, at the national level, at the state level, or the local level, to make loans. Banks make loans. Governments don't make loans. The people on this county council, the people from the Maryland Department of Economic Development, the people from the Harford County Department of Economic Development do not have the expertise required for the loan business. And I would suggest to you that if they did, they should retire, get out of the county council, get out of the state, and open their own venture capital business with their own money and take their risks with their money, and then they can pick winners and losers all day long, if you ask me. That's my opinion. I put that out there a few months ago, and I gotten a lot of trouble from the Republican establishment in this county. They didn't like it too much when I said that. But anyway, so I'm a poor stand-in for Christina, so I'm just going to kind of say a couple of things. Jeremy, how do I do this?
It's up there.
Oh, right here? Okay. All right. So, Christina's done a lot of really great work on these handouts, from the county and from the state. And Lowell recapped some of them, the Smith's detection, which totaled $750,000, $100 grand from us, $650 grand from the state. Now, there are people out there that will say, you castigated me you said I gave away $750,000 of taxpayer money from this county. I didn't. I only gave away $100,000. If your vote unleashes another $650,000 from the state, we're all still paying it. It just depends on what pool of money that it comes out of. So there's a new handout coming to town, and what it is the Coles resolution. And on February 12th, Resolution 413 came before the county council. And what Resolution 413 does is the majority of the document is a letter which was dated March 30th of 2011. And the Department of Business and Economic Development, the state of Maryland, our friend DBED, and from the Harford County Office of Economic Development, or OED. What am I doing here? Which one do I hit? Right here. Okay. So, Jim Richardson, who is the director of the county's Office of Economic Development, sent a letter to the vice president in charge of finance at Kohl's, and in this letter they outline all the goodies that Kohl's is going to get if they locate their new distribution center in Edgewood. They're going to get $400,000 from DBED as a conditional loan. Now, when you hear conditional loan, it's not a loan. It's free. They don't ever have to pay this back. So they call it a loan just to make it sound good. As a conditional loan with no monthly payments. Who wants a loan with no monthly payments? I do. And if the company meets the conditions that the state has declared, the loan doesn't get repaid. It's free money except for us, the taxpayers, who had to supply the money. In addition, the state, to the state money, Harford County is coughing up $100,000 of conditional loan, again with no monthly payments and no need to repay. Because Kohl's was eyeing an empty warehouse in Edgewood, the company would also get an enterprise zone job credit accounting to $900,000 in tax credits from the state. And because the Kohl's warehouse would be located in an enterprise zone, they would also receive $2.3 million in savings in county taxes. Pretty nice work if you can get it. And the $650,000 in state tax savings. The county also offered a $50,000 workforce training grant. Now, what that means is that we're giving, you and I, Harford County, on behalf of you and I, are giving Kohl's $50,000 for Kohl's to train its workers. Now, the place where I work, my company has to train us for our parts of our jobs on their own dime. So that comes out, when you add all this up, and they get $25,000 for the first 2 years to train new employees on how to work at the distribution center. So that comes out to about $90 an employee, so those must be some pretty expensive training materials. So $50K to train new employees. And guess what? Because we're such nice guys, Kohl's also received from the Office of Economic Development help to find these new employees. So we're going to help Kohl's go out and find these new employees that they're going to have work for them. They got their own task force from the county to help recruit people at job fairs. So we're going to go out to job fairs, Harford County is, and we're going to do Kohl's job and recruit them, but they're still going to get money to train these workers and find these workers. Now, Harford County, because we're such nice guys, is also offering a commuter bus to and from Baltimore City for every shift at the warehouse. Now, this is particularly interesting because they're saying that all these jobs are going to be in Harford County, and we're spending this money because we're going to be, creating jobs, but they got bus service back and forth to Baltimore City? Why?
Don't anybody go to Kohl's?
Now, I don't know. It's a pretty interesting offer considering that the Office of Economic Development has asked Kohl's to make every effort to hire Harford County people. So, here's the timeline of the county's deal with Kohl's. This letter, this original letter, was sent on March 30th of 2011. It was accepted by Kohl's on April 5th of 2011. On April 13th, Christian Johansson, the Secretary of Maryland's Department of Bureau of Economic Development, said a deal had been reached including $400,000 in a conditional loan from the state, a $100,000 loan from Harford County, and a $50,000 workforce training grant, again from Harford County. So you're into it for $150,000. Also, on April 13th, the date of the letter, Kohl's bought the property in Edgewood. On December 11th, Kohl's got their enterprise tax zone credit designation from the county. And on April 30th, 2012, the Harford County Office of Economic Development got an honorable mention award from MEDA, M-E-D-A, MEDA, the Maryland Economic Development Association. Solid deal, Mr. Richardson. That's what you get when you hand out all kinds of taxpayer money. You get awards from various different companies. So, it took until February 12th, nearly 2 years years after this deal was first proposed for the taxpayer to get a chance to read a resolution and have a chance to weigh in. You see, this country was formed on public debate and on citizen having some say in the way government operates. In the case of the Coles resolution, we can see that government was making these deals behind closed doors and lobbying our elected officials to pass resolutions after the deals have already been made. Now, up until April of 2012, Harford County was making sweetheart loans to companies at 3% interest. Now, that's bad enough, but since truly limited government would be not in the game of picking winners and losers, but at least these loans would be paid back. But in April, Bill 1219 was passed. Bill 1219 doubled the maximum amount of the Office of Economic Development loan from $100,000 to $200,000. And it allowed the Office of Economic Development to issue their own loans and grants up to $50,000 without county council approval needed. So, if I'm a politician, that's kind of good for me, I think, because then I don't have to have my fingers on it with a vote. I have one vote out there to do that, but then these individual resolutions for $50,000 don't have my name on them, so that's kind of nice. And it created the option also of making additional loans. By the way, we're not typically in the habit here of giving props to our elected officials, but there was only one county council member that voted against Resolution 1219, and that was Chad Schroes. So thank you, Chad, for doing that. So here we have a deal that was made behind closed doors and kept secret for 2 years until the county executive decided to put it before the council. This is big government at its worst, using any means necessary to gift money to a corporation as a bribe to attract businesses. And as we discussed last year, this is a shameful trend in our state, and our county officials have initiated by allowing corporations to shape public policy. Now, some people would call that crony capitalism, I would call it crony socialism. And it's $550,000 of your taxpayer money going directly to this company, instead of going to fund our schools, fix our roads, renovate our buildings, etc. And as you will find out later, there is an unfunded liability hanging out there in the county for teachers, other employment benefits that I think, if I remember right, is around $170 million. But nobody's talking about that, but we're handing out all this money, meanwhile. But the good news is that this resolution is not done yet. You still have time to make your voices heard and put heat on the 7 council members who will ultimately decide if the county will okay the deal to pony up thousands of dollars of your money. Campaign for Liberty will be making active Republican voters aware and urging them to contact their council member. And we will also be in the process of making postcards available as well. And we're asking everybody in the room to do their part, take home a flyer in the front if you don't have one yet, and take 5 minutes. I mean, this is participatory democracy. This is a participatory republic. Take 5 minutes to call your council member and be in charge of your own destiny. Because if you can't control what's going on in the county, the nation's far over your horizon. So it doesn't take that long. 9 times out of 10, you'll just be leaving a message on an answering machine anyway. But it adds up in the long run to a tremendous amount of pressure on these officials. If you don't know who your county council member is, ask to speak to Billy Boniface, the council president. And we expect this to be a very close vote. And if enough people speak up against these handouts, then we could set a precedent, hopefully, with this resolution. So thanks for listening, and thanks for everything that y'all do. Yes?
I'm not sure. I thought the money was already given out. Done. It's been given. So what are they going to vote on?
Well, it has to come back. There's a public comment period, and then it has to come back, and it's going to ultimately be voted on.
So they haven't actually gotten all of these things.
Well, they've made the arrangements for all of this to happen. It was promised to them already. They just have to go through the formality of having all this stuff being set in motion to happen.
Scott, what does the government get out of this?
They are...
No, serious.
Well, they'll tell you that they want Hartford County to be business friendly.
Why are they bringing people in from Baltimore then?
Call the council people and ask them.
Okay.
Now, just remember one thing. Business friendly is not the same as market friendly. You know, I can make all these like little private arrangements to help my buddies out that have various different businesses around the county, and I'm business friendly. But that's not market friendly because they're not competing on a fair footing with other companies that don't have that access.
Right.
Thank you.
You know, if Christina was here, she could probably tell you that.
She'd know in a heartbeat.
She would know in a second. this is her.
I know that the DAC used to be in there,
Yeah.
but I don't know if the DAC also.
I think it's already been purchased. It might have, I don't know who owned it.
Yeah, they decided to purchase it on April 13th of 2011.
Yes, sir.
And this was like I'm saying, this started 2 years ago, and the council, if we get enough going to the council votes against it, that opens up a lot of lawsuits, I think. I mean,
Well, these are just all backroom deals that they've made, you know, with one another.
Well, shining light on a backroom deal is the best thing you can possibly do.
The way these deals work is if Hartford County doesn't vote to pony up to 150, they don't get the state money. So the state money is conditional upon Hartford County ponying up their cash. So really, it's not wrong to say that they are by including that state money, $550,000. You voted for $550,000 of taxpayer money to be handed out. 150 Hartford and 400 from the state, but it's still coming from you, and it's coming from people in Frederick and Charles and Cecil and Montgomery and every place else. So,
Yeah. Anyway, thank you, Scott. I mean, just look who benefits. If you're a politician and your hand is on the purse strings of all this free money, you know, it's your money, but it's free money to them. There's a lot of influence there. There's a lot of benefit there. Who benefits? Okay? And it's not the free market. When the government at any level is in the business of deciding who wins and who loses, who gets the sweetheart deal and who doesn't, that's just corruption. That's plain, simple corruption. Yeah, fascism. So anyway, there's more of it to come because our state government wants to tell you who gets to win and lose in the property rights game. So we're going to hear from Vicki right now about stormwater management and the issue being used to, again, attack property rights and property values. Vicki Seitzen.
So where do I push the advance? This advance, okay. All right, can everybody see that? Okay?
Oh, yeah.
All right. Well, I don't know how many folks here saw in the Aegis last week that Hartford County and the state of Maryland are conspiring to basically increase your property taxes in the form of a fee for stormwater remediation. Did anybody see that? Okay. Yep. All right, well, Martin O'Malley's there. Welcome to Maryland. What's in your wallet? He just can't seem to stop going back to that trough. The backstory of this, just to give you a little history of how we got here. Back in 1972, the federal government passed the Clean Water Act, and part of that is a requirement that counties that have an MS4 permit, and an MS4 is a municipal separate stormwater system, all those counties need to get a permit in order to function. And these stormwater systems are stormwater systems that carry runoff from your roof, from impervious surfaces into the stormwater system and eventually into the bay. And with that runoff comes a load of pollutants. The permitting requirements include a mandatory treatment of 20% of all the runoff. So 20% of the runoff off your roof, your driveway, your backyard, into these systems require treatment to reduce the pollutants before they get to the bay. And in addition to that, Harford County is also required to comply with the Chesapeake Bay Watershed Implementation Plan. And all of this, again, is stuff either coming from the state or from the state from the federal government to the state to improve the quality of the bay. The anticipated cost for Harford County alone is $70 to $90 million by 2017. That's a lot of money. The Watershed Implementation Plan is part of this, and basically what that is it's an EPA-mandated diet for the Chesapeake Bay. And what they're looking at are loads of nitrogen, phosphorus, and sediment. These are the pollutants that the state and the federal government are trying to reduce, and in doing so, hopefully improve the quality of the bay. Also, the Watershed Implementation Plan assists conformity to Executive Order 13508, which was an executive order that Barack Obama issued in order to help the EPA achieve these goals. What it does is require the end game, the long-term goal, is full restoration of the bay by 2025 with 60% implementation by 2017. So by 2017, we'll have paid between $70 and $90 million, but we're only 60% there. So there's more. You don't think this is the end of it, folks. There's more coming down the pipe. And these watershed implementation plans are actually plans that are required by the EPA, but designed by the states. And they include the states that surround, in effect, and their tributaries drain into the bay. And those states are Delaware, Pennsylvania, Maryland. You can read it in D.C. Will this help the bay? Well, yeah, it will help the bay some. Will it help it a lot? Will it help it? Are we getting the bang for the buck we need? Probably not. This quote is by Mr. David Craig in the Dagger, February 18th, 2013. Consider that stormwater and urban runoff from Maryland are the source of 5% of sediment and 2% of nitrogen and phosphorus flowing into the bay. There are plenty of studies out there that suggest that the largest single source of pollution is the Conowingo Dam, which, over the better part of 100 years now, has built up, and is no longer able to function the filtering service that it once served for us. Well, if we're spending $90 million and we're only solving 5% of the problem, it doesn't. I'm not an economist. I balance my checkbook. That's about it. But it doesn't take a huge brain to figure out that we're not going after the biggest source of the problem. Well, House Bill 987 was passed last year in the Maryland General. Some people like to call it the Maryland General Asylum. It's called the Stormwater Management, Watershed Protection and Restoration Program. And what it does is it requires 10 local jurisdictions to actually mandate fees from the citizens within those jurisdictions to pay for these water treatment plants and for restoration of the bay. It does allow the localities to set the fee structure on its own, and it's set to take effect at July 1st, 2013, hence the reason why this is coming up now. It was opposed in the legislature last year by all but one Harford County elected official. Can anybody name that Harford County elected official? Yes. I'd buy you a drink if I had any cash on me. Anybody here in Miss Delaney James' district? Anybody here in her district? I know I'm not. In her.
I think I am.
Yeah. Well, you might want to give her a call and thank her very much. Let her know that you're real pleased with what she's done for you. The goal is to fund a fund that is designated only for stormwater treatment and watershed protection. One thing I thought was pretty interesting: all publicly held properties are exempt from this. Not that that would make any difference because we'd end up paying for them anyway. But the parking lot behind the county council building, the black box, they're exempt. They don't have to pay this. What is Harford County doing to manage this problem for us? Well, they have formed a coalition called SWAM, the Stormwater Association of Maryland, and you can see those are the towns and the counties listed that are members: Howard, Cecil, Harford, Frederick, Washington, and then the city of Cumberland and the town of Berlin. SWAM's primary goals are stated right there: to ensure that local governments have meaningful input in all aspects of Maryland's stormwater programs and related requirements. Well, does anybody here think SWAM has done a great job so far? I mean, we wouldn't be here if they had done a really great job. Now, I can't find out too much about SWAM. Their website is kind of thin on information, but it does list all the people on the board. And we've got a couple of folks from the Harford County Department of Public Works that are there. The president the president is the director of the Public Works. Actually, he's not the director, but a gentleman involved in water management in the Department of Public Works is president of SWAM. And then the rest of the folks are various elected or appointed officials that work within the counties that they represent. Couldn't find out too much about them except for one, Shannon Moore, who's the Director of Sustainable Development in Frederick County. Now, for you folks that have been here coming for a long time, I hope by now when you hear that word sustainable, the hackles on the back of your neck go up, your ears prick up, and already you're suspicious, because we know that sustainable development is not what it sounds. Well, anyway, Miss Shannon Moore is the Director of Sustainable Development, and the goal of her department is to encourage growth in a smart way through initiatives, outreach, service, and support land preservation, environmentally sustainable practices. So that's weird the way that came out. So, Miss Moore is down with this. And my guess is she's down with Plan Maryland, and she's down with SB 236, and she's just down with all of it. Now, this is speculative on my part because I haven't discussed it with her, but she is the director of their Sustainable Development Department, okay? So that tells us a little something right there. So we know that at least one member of SWAM maybe isn't really actively and vigorously and with, full-throated effort really trying to do something about these abuses of the citizens of Harford County and all of Maryland, really. Well, other than putting SWAM together so they could work to see to it that the counties of the state were fully engaged in the process of these abuses. What have you done for us lately? Well, I can tell you that Harford County officials and County Executive Craig did aggressively lobby against this bill when it was being heard. They were not successful. The Department of Public Works did hold a community information session on January the 19th, and I know that some of us were there. And essentially what they did was tell us, this is what's coming. It could cost as much as $400 per resident, but we're doing everything we can to make it as painless as possible. Now, again, County Executive Craig, that third bullet point is a direct quote from an article, again in the Dagger. While I share their desire for a clean and healthy bay, as you probably do too, I question the priorities of those in Annapolis who feel that no price is too steep to pay for only a marginal improvement in bay quality. Well, good work, County Executive David Craig. We're with you there. The fourth bullet point, again, Mr. Craig. While we will comply with a state law that forces us to collect the stormwater fee as well as work diligently toward meeting our federal stormwater discharge requirements, we will continue to work on behalf of our taxpayers and business people to mitigate this and other things that are coming down the pipeline. And again, he knows it, you know it, we know it, I know, we all know it. This is not the end, folks. They're going to be coming back for more later. So, you know, Mr. Craig doesn't like it, but, you know, he feels like he has to go ahead with it. The bottom line is, we're all, the resolution, or the bill that is before the county council, and there will be a public hearing on March the 19th, is a request for a $125 fee from each residential homeowner, and for commercial properties, $7 per 500 square feet of impervious surfaces. This is probably just the first bite at the apple. It probably won't stay $125. It'll probably go up in the near future. Are there any alternatives? I mean, are we really, you know, hogtied? Are we at the mercy of the state? Is there nothing we can do? Yes, there are alternatives and there are things that we can do. Just like Harford County has entered into a coalition called SWAM, other counties have entered into a coalition called the Clean Chesapeake Coalition. And the Clean Chesapeake Coalition is testifying in Annapolis, lobbying in Annapolis, and trying to work with the EPA to pursue the goal of a clean and restored bay through means that are cost effective and effective. I mean, if we believe that only 5% of the runoff is coming from our backyard, well then, and it's going to cost us $90 million, that doesn't make sense. Harford County is not a member of the Clean Chesapeake Coalition, and one of the things that the Clean Chesapeake Coalition is doing is they're using the FERC relicensing of the Conowingo Dam, which is happening right now. When the Conowingo Dam gets relicensed, it's relicensed for the next 30 to 50 years. So the iron is hot and the time to strike is now. They're trying to engage the EPA and the state of Maryland to use this relicensing process to force the Conowingo Dam to do its part here, thereby relieving a lot of the cost and burden on private tax-paying citizens like us. What can you do? Well, March the 19th, the County Council is having a hearing. They'll be discussing Bill 1312, I believe is the bill. Request that your council reconsider membership with the Clean Chesapeake Coalition. Insist that Harford County not extract further funds from its citizens for environmental initiatives of questionable value. And call Mary Delaney James and let her know that she's costing me a lot of money. So anyway, that's all I have. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vicki. Oh, Scott, can you bring up the thing I left, please?
I would love to.
All right, guys, we're running a little late, so we're going to make our announcements short and sweet and to the point. Give us your money, and we can move on with the meeting. No, I'm just kidding. We do want to do two things here, Rob. I want to thank you for being here. We want to recognize those people who are new or brought someone new for the first time, and we have two gorgeous Campaign for Liberty t-shirts. These are extra larges, but you can trade them for whatever size works for you. But they're both extra large, so you don't have to rush up here and oh, thank you. Wow, somebody put money in here. Thank you, Scott. Priming the pump. All right, and the winner of the first t-shirt is ticket number 995 at the end. 995, 995. Ticket number 995. Ticket number 995. There you go. Come on up. Yay! And the winner of the second t-shirt is 998. 998. 998. 998. There it is. All right. Good deal. Is that you, Ken? I didn't recognize you. Congratulations. Here's our deal. Harford Campaign for Liberty has expenses. It's $250 just to rent this thing once a month. We're always on the fourth Tuesday for those of you who are new. Fourth Tuesday, put it in your mind, put it in your calendar, put it in your PDA, put it in your cell phone. Fourth Tuesday, That's why we're here. It's $250 a night to do this. We do calls, we do postcards, we do mailings. They doubled my salary this year, so I'm really pretty happy about that. From 0 to 00. So very, very excited. Hoping next year I get another bump. But anyway, no one gets paid here to do any of this thing. So we appreciate your contribution to help make this and all the other things that Harper Campaign for Liberty does to preserve and protect your freedoms possible. So there's plenty of these. This isn't the only one. I'll start it over here with the latest one, the t-shirts. We can all watch to put a really, really big bill. I'm just kidding. All right. This is one of my favorite parts of the meeting, but it's the part where I have to be the policeman, so don't make me hurt anybody. I actually have a gavel now. This is pretty exciting. They're trusting me with assault gavels. This is the open mic time. We asked that it be 2 to 3 minutes, and because we're running a little late, we still have a lot of speakers. We do want it to be, if you can, do 2 minutes. And our first speaker tonight is Al Smith, talking about the Institute on the Constitution. On deck is Dave Bauer, and in the hole is John Alamo.
Testing, 1, 2. I don't know if anybody here knows what the Institute of the Constitution is. Probably quite a few people do. But anyhow, the last 2 months they had some very, very good speakers. First of the month, first Friday of every month, they have a guest speaker come in and talk about very pertinent issues. 2 months ago was Sheriff Richard Mack. Last month it was Larry Pratt from the Gunmen of America. This Friday coming up, it's going to be Pastor David Whitney. Now, Pastor David Whitney goes to a lot of legislative sessions and does a lot of testifying on constitutional issues. This Friday, he's going to be talking about guns, and the Constitution. All right. Very good stuff. So if you are interested at all on your constitutional rights and Second Amendment, the tickets are free. You go to theamericanview.com and you get free tickets. It's going to be at the Severn Christian Church at 8132 Cut Road in Severn. You can go to the website and click on it. I'm going to be there. I think some other people will be there. Highly recommend you go get around these people. They know what they're talking about. Okay?
Thanks, Al. Thanks. That's theamericanview.com if you want to get more information about that. Dave, you're up. John Alamo, you're on deck. And Bob Phillips, you're in the hole.
I found myself in this situation one evening where there was nothing to see on television, which is almost every night.
Right.
So I decided to reread part of the Declaration of Independence. And applying the word liberty, I will change a word or two, and I want to read just a few excerpts. I discovered that what was written many, many years ago applies to the federal and state situation today. For example, there's a section here, the history of the present king, whose name is Obama, a history of repeated injuries, usurpations, all having in direct object the establishment of absolute tyranny over these states. He has refused assent to laws, the most wholesome and necessary for the public good. Martin O'Malley is still in here, or is now in here. He has called together legislative bodies in places unusual, uncomfortable, and distant from the depository of their public records for the sole purpose of fatiguing them into compliance with his measures. The Democrats in the Maryland General Assembly hold meetings in unscheduled times and locations so that few Republicans can't get there. He has obstructed the administration of justice by refusing his assent to laws for establishing powers. He has made judges dependent upon his will alone for their tenure in offices. Sonia Sotomayor and John Roberts, perhaps. He has erected a multitude of new offices and sent hither swarms of officers to harass our people and eat out their substance. Amen. The EPA, the IRS, and Obamacare. EPA is improperly labeled the Environmental Protection Agency. It's actually the Employment Prevention Agency. And it applies to the United Nations, affecting us today. He has combined with others to subject us to a jurisdiction foreign to our Constitution and unacknowledged by our laws, giving his assent to acts of pretended legislation. There's issues of gun control, the Alaskan Islands giveaway, giving away the internet, and allow the United Nations to tax us. He's cut off our trade with all parts of the world, affecting oil, gas, and coal industries. He's imposed taxes on us without our consent, and depriving us in many cases of the benefits of trial by jury. The Defense Authorization Act. For taking away our charters, abolishing our valuable laws, and altering fundamentally the forms of our government are the work of his czars. For suspending our legislature and declaring themselves invested with power to legislate for us in all cases whatsoever. He has abdicated government here by declaring us out of protection and waging war against us. Class warfare, bypassing Congress, etc. And Martin O'Malley's here again. In every stage of these oppressions, we have petitioned for redress in the most humble terms. Our repeated petitions have been answered only by repeated injury. A prince, Martin O'Malley, whose character is thus marked by every act which may define a tyrant unfit to be the ruler of the free people.
That's for next meeting. You got to go to the next meeting.
I'll be done in seconds. To assure the rights given to us by God, and some of those are my words to shorten it up, governments are instituted among men, deriving just powers from the consent of the governed, that whatever any form of government becomes destructive to these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it and institute new government. Prudence, indeed, will dictate that governments long established should not be changed for light and transient causes. Experience has shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer while evils are sufferable than to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed. But when a long train of abuses and usurpations pursuing invariably the same object evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is our right, it is our duty to throw off such government and provide new guards for our future security.
Okay. It's like, you don't love the Declaration of Independence, right? John, Bob, you're on deck, and Cindy Shares is in the hole. Yes, that's the timer. Turn that off. I'll turn that off. That's what Dave said.
Ms. Seitsinger, could I borrow your slides? I'd like to talk on this bill 1312.
One of these? Huh?
Roll it back all the way. Okay. I think what's important to understand, and this is a little bit more detail, is that House Bill 987 is an enabling piece of legislation. It doesn't require Harford County to do anything. Harford County is one of 10 different jurisdictions that holds a permit. It's a permit to discharge wastewater. And those 10 jurisdictions were enabled by the state legislature to collect a fee for stormwater runoff. Now, how did we get to the point where we had stormwater runoff that was of consideration? It was part of a consent agreement that the EPA signed with the American Canoe Association and a sanitary district in Washington, D.C. It required that the EPA establish what's called a total maximum daily load for nitrogen, phosphorus, runoff, and this is what you got to understand, airborne nitrogen. So Ms. Seitzinger is absolutely correct that you haven't seen it all. If you read the paper about Obama's next appointment to the EPA, her focus, her charge, she's already stated, is on airborne pollution. So the 4 components: urban, suburban runoff, agricultural, on-site wastewater, and airborne emissions. You will see another tax for saving the bay. Now, the $70 to $90 million, that's the start point. That's an intermediate goal. 2017 is the intermediate point. It's estimated that you will see that double. And Harford County, by the way, has already established what streams they will protect in their own WIP plan that they've submitted to the state. Could I have the next slide? What's important to understand is that when you look at the EPA mandated diet, it was successfully challenged in federal court 3 times. The state of Virginia challenged it, and the judge says, stormwater, rainwater, is not a pollutant. The state of California challenged it, and they said, stormwater runoff is not a pollutant. Contractors started a challenge, and the judge said, stormwater is not a pollutant. And that's important to understand. Next slide. Now, as far as the largest single pollution in the bay, the Conowingo Dam does not generate any pollution. It collects, it's a repository for New York and Pennsylvania and the entire Susquehanna Valley. All that collects behind the dam. It's never been cleaned up. Now, when the EPA came up with that, guess who said we're not going to comply? All the farmers in Pennsylvania. Guess who sued them? The Chesapeake Bay Foundation. You know what? People think that Chesapeake Bay Foundation is a nice bunch of people. They are not. They are evil. Their mission: educate, adjudicate, and litigate. And they say it in their website. So, the Chesapeake Bay Foundation, the Bay Program, all these other people that pretend that they are going to save the Bay have established a self-licking lollipop. They have an industry that depends on you paying more and more money annually to fund their efforts. The Chesapeake Bay Foundation is worth $90 million, not a small sum. So, will the Chesapeake Bay benefit from cleaning out the Conowingo Dam? Absolutely. But if the farmers in Pennsylvania don't adhere to what they're supposed to do, and by the way, the consent agreement does not require them to do anything. It's voluntary. New York, New Jersey, Delaware, Pennsylvania, voluntary if you want to do it. And we assume you will, but maybe you won't. Then nothing happens. Can I continue on?
In fairness to all the other speakers that prepared, I should...
But can I just say, you know, scroll to the... Okay. Go there. Are there alternatives? Yes, there are. First of all, this is a fee. It's not a tax. The county does not depend upon it for its operations. So it can be taken to referendum. You can take it to referendum. Get 5% of the voters, the eligible voters, to sign a petition, take it to referendum. What else can you do? You can tell the county, we don't want to fund it. We'd rather litigate it. We'd rather have a litigation to deny this. Or you can get them to amend it. The fee is not established within the House Bill 987. The local jurisdiction establishes that. I'll pay $1. I don't care. And I guess I'm done. Thanks, John.
Does the Window Dam have any kind of filtration plant there?
No. There is no filtration plant associated with the Conowingo Dam. It is a repository. If you go across the dam after a big storm, you see all that trash that's on top, you don't see what's underneath. Okay? The Titanic didn't sink because of the ice cube they could see. It was what was below the water that sank the Titanic. Okay.
Thanks, John.
The bottom line is, and thank you, John, for giving some more details, but the bottom line is that Harford County is choosing to comply with this unless we stand up and say something. When John says that other municipalities, other states, other towns have chosen to litigate, that's what the Clean Chesapeake Coalition does. The member states, the member counties of the Chesapeake Bay Coalition are engaged in pursuing, at some point, mediation and then litigation. So our elected officials should at least be considering this.
Can I just amplify on that? The reason that Harford County is complying is that their MPDES, their pollution discharge permit, is up for renewal this year. The EPA, in their consent agreement, has no penalties, no fines, no punitive measures associated with non-compliance, other than maybe we won't renew your MPDES certificate. What does that mean? Well, it means no more sewage system. Okay? Now, what I'd suggest you do is contact your county representative and ask him, why are we doing this? And also put pressure on the part where no publicly owned facility is included in this is partially correct. No state-owned, no municipally owned, no volunteer fire department owned is included. Aberdeen Proving Ground is included. People don't want to understand that, but the state's Attorney General has said Aberdeen Proving Ground should pay, just like everybody else. So put pressure on the county representatives and tell them, we're not happy with this, we don't like it, and it ain't doing any good. The Bay restoration fee that was $2.50 is now $5 because that fund is broke. They failed to prioritize, and they get $300 or $400 million a year that they have misspent. Thanks.
Thanks, John. Bob Phillips, everybody.
I'm sure you guys are already aware of Senate Bill 281, Martin O'Malley's anti-gun bill. Anybody know how many how many bills there are in Annapolis in the Maryland General Assembly that affect gun owners right now? 79 as of today. There are 79 bills. I just wanted to give you some of the brief ones there. One of them is HB 0773, the encoded ammunition tax. It's 5 cents per round. It requires encoding of ammo to be done by any dealer selling ammo. It requires the Maryland State Police to keep a database of anybody that's purchasing encoded ammo. HB 0776 requires the person selling the ammo to register that ammo. HB 0294 changes the authorization to wear, carry, transport a handgun or designated firearm, any i.e. assault weapon, shotgun with pistol grip. you guys probably should check out the Maryland General Assembly website, mgaleg.maryland.gov/, because SB 281, I believe it's kind of smoke and mirrors. Everybody's focused on that, but we're being attacked, and some of these things are not being attacked straight on. I mean, we spoke, myself, Joe, and Lowell spoke with Joe Woods, Councilman Joe Woods, about a week ago, and he was telling us how some of these things are in Ways and Means, and they're not things that can be brought to referendum if they're passed. So I urge you all to contact your local legislators and to check out mgaleg.maryland.gov/, because you know, they're really attacking the Second Amendment hard. And as somebody that took an oath to uphold the Constitution, to me it's an affront to each and every military men and women that's in here, everybody that's ever put on a uniform. Okay?
Great. Thanks, Bob. Thank you. And Patrick's going to be talking about the state and gun control issues just shortly here. Sure.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Much of what's been said here tonight has to do with the relationship of government with other entities, sometimes local with the feds, which they shouldn't be. That's why they can hold something over us to bribe us to comply with rules. But another is government with business, and Scott was talking about that with the coals issue. That is a monopoly. When government makes a relationship with certain businesses, it prevents other businesses from having a free playing field. It creates conditions for grabs. Everybody in here should get, if you don't have one, a copy of our Maryland Constitution. It has at the beginning of it a Declaration of Rights, which is 47 articles, and that's like a Bill of Rights. It's statements declaring some of the liberties of citizens, of people in the, under the government of Maryland, or in the presence of the government of Maryland. And the government of Maryland is supposed to obey this Constitution. So I want to read you the preamble and then one of the articles, very short. This was written originally in 1776. This is our fourth Constitution, but most of what I'm going to read you is still the same words. We, the people of the state of Maryland, grateful to Almighty God for our civil and religious liberty, and taking into our serious consideration the best means of establishing a good constitution in this state for the sure foundation and more permanent security thereof, declare that monopolies are odious, contrary to the spirit of free government and the principles of commerce, and as such ought not to be tolerated. This is what we need to use when testifying or calling any of our legislators or elected officials all the time, because they took an oath in Maryland to obey this state of Maryland Constitution. It hasn't changed. I don't care how many times they've made deals with businesses with taxpayers' money. They've been wrong every time. They're still wrong. They need to be held accountable. That's where it fits.
Thank you very much. Everybody who spoke, I apologize for being the timekeeper. I don't like doing that. But we have some other great speakers, and we want to give them the time that they prepared for. So, Rick, if you'd come, we're going to have Rick Rambo come up.
That's cool. That's cool.
You don't look like Rick. Rick Rambo, are you here, sir? Yes. He's going to be quick and share with you something that you probably don't know is coming down the pike.
And I got to tell you, John, it's really hard to follow the self-licking lollipop. I'm still chuckling over that one. Probably going to use it at some point. My name is Rick Rambo with the Board of Education. We put on a little show every other Monday night, and two of the stars are sitting right over there. I encourage you to show up. We're watching on TV if you like. We are pretty good about talking about a wide variety of subjects. Nothing is taboo there anymore. And we've got a diverse group, so the discussion sometimes gets pretty interesting. But what I wanted to inform you about real quick tonight, because time's short, is something that we talked about a month ago, and it's come up from time to time. It's an unfunded liability that you won't hear too many politicians talk about. I'm not here to blame this on anyone. This is a Harford County problem. It's going to affect everyone in Harford County. Whether you're a taxpayer, a teacher, a retiree, a student, everyone in Harford County this affects. So what it amounts to is, you remember the pension shift? A lot of people pay attention to the whole pension shift. Well, the retirees have a pension, and the state's pushed some of that back on the Harford County government, and they'll probably do a better job at funding it than the state did anyway. So I'm not here to discuss that. This is the other piece of that. This is called OPEB, and that stands for Other Post-Employment Benefits. So what that is that's the health insurance, the life insurance, the dental insurance benefits packages that the retirees get. And the problem with it is it's underfunded. So what we have is, I guess it was 2004, the Government Accountability Standards Board started requiring that public sectors pay attention to this and publish it and look at it. So you're starting to read it in the newspaper all over the country. You'll see OPEB, you'll see it pop up, Baltimore City, things like that. They're having trouble with it. So we're no different in Harford County. You're going to see that Harford County government employees, and you'll hear this from time to time, they've got a trust. Well, that does not include the school system employees. The school system employees at HCPS are on their own. HCPS is handling that, even though the county government's the funding source. So as of July 1st, the system was in arrears just over $127 million. So that's a liability, not only on all of you that have to pay it, but let's also think about the people that have been promised these things, and somewhere down the road are going to count on them, and hopefully they're there for them. That's a real issue. So you're going to hear more about this as we move forward. That's funded at about 10%. What the board's done is, because Harford County has not included us in their trust, we've gone with, and this was years before I ever got there, or any of these folks, they've got a trust established with Maryland Association of Boards of Education in several other counties. And there's about, I believe, $24 million in there right now. So we'll from time to time take votes to move some extra money over this thing to try to alleviate the problem, but it's not near enough. So this liability is going to grow. You're going to start hearing people talk about it a little more. I think the board's done a good job of making sure that this gets out there, and hopefully you'll understand it a little bit better when you hear it. And I don't have the answer, I don't have the solution, but the last thing we want to do is pretend it doesn't exist, because that would just be a terrible tragedy here down the road. So I'm going to cut this real short because we've got another speaker, but go ahead, I'll answer a question.
What percent of teachers working today, what percent of their income is put into the fund?
That's a good question. I don't know the exact answer. I believe, hold on, I might have it here. I brought all this information to be able to look that type of thing up and tell you, but I can't answer that question right now. Do either of you know off the top of your head? Okay, yeah. Sorry, I apologize. So, like I said, it's a real issue. Wanted you to be aware of it. Thank you for listening.
Let's give Rick Wiss one more hand, because he's now the president of the Harford County Board of Education. I love it for a sacrifice of time and trouble to do that. And we were talking about an unfunded liability of over $100 million, and then we're talking about our same kind of government giving away money to businesses as they choose to see fit, as they, wherever the campaign money flows and wherever the county's money flows, and it's needed for a lot of other things. And it should be going back to the people that overpaid anyway, right? If we had a surplus to give away to businesses, then we shouldn't have taken it from you and me, right? Does that make sense? Right. Can I get an amen? Right. Amen. And now Patrick McGrady is going to talk about the gun control situation in Maryland.
Thank you. All right. Because it's late, everyone needs to rise, please. Rise, rise. Shake the hand of the person next to you. Introduce yourself. Get a deep breath. I want you paying attention while I'm speaking. All right, let's rock and roll. Okay, sit down. I don't have time for this. We don't have time for this. All right. So many of my friends I see, many people I do not recognize. These are both good things. Thank you for returning, and thank you for being new. Who's new? I missed that. Anybody new? Good, a handful of people. That excites me. Thank you very much. Okay. I'm going to talk a little bit about political philosophy which will conclude with what's happening in Annapolis about your guns, and will hopefully not make you suicidal in the process. So like Lowell said, my name is Patrick McGrady. I am speaking to you as the chairman of the Maryland Liberty Political Action Committee today. We are probably the smallest group of pit bulls in the state of Maryland that is causing political pain for everybody that looks at us. And I'm proud of that. Okay, so. Right? This is what we're dealing with. You see O'Malley up here and Harry Reid. Who knows who's up to the right there? Feinstein. Dianne Feinstein, senator from California.
Dianne Frankenstein.
Who's that guy? John Boehner. John Boehner. Then you got Nancy. And then Mary. We see people who don't care to defend what we believe in all over the place, right? Everywhere we see them. From town council to county council, to candidates for Congress, to the President of the United States, people who don't share our fundamental beliefs. The question we then have to ask is, how do I go to the next slide? Who will save us from them? Who will save us from these people? The Republicans? No. The Democrats? No. The Libertarians? No. No, they're not going to save us.
County sheriff.
Think about this. Who's going to save you? Think about this. Don't answer yet. Think about who's going to save you.
Sheriffs.
First, we got to get our heads right. We have to understand what we're thinking about here. Is everybody paying attention? Do I have your attention? I'm only going to say it one time. That's not true. I'm not going to say it one time. I say it a lot. Okay. We got to get our heads right when dealing with these politicians. We can either choose to be their friends. We can make relationships with them, we can have access to them, or we can have power over what happens in the legislature. Power is, we say do this, and they do this, or else we replace them in the next election. That's power. Access is, you know, Patrick, I really would like to vote to not pay the money, or not charge you the stormwater fee, but the EPA tells us we have to. Right? You have to understand that, Patrick. You're being unreasonable, Patrick. I hear this every day. That's unreasonable, Patrick. Is it unreasonable?
No.
Every time, this is a question you must ask yourself whenever you hear something from a politician, whether it's me, or Rick Grambo, or Pridgeon, anybody who says something to you, a politician or a member of the political class, could be their wife, could be their aide, could be a volunteer on their campaign, a member of the political class. When they say something to you, you must ask yourself, oh, crap. How does the politician benefit if I believe them? If I take what they're saying and believe it in my heart? If I take what I think and replace it with what they think? This might be confusing, but it gets clearer. So, this is a call that I've been getting a lot in the last couple days, right? About the gun stuff. I've been calling a lot of angry voters who love their guns, right? And every time I do it and tell them to call their state senator in Annapolis, I get angry phone calls that say, stop telling people that our friend, the state senator, is going to vote the wrong way. He'll definitely vote against us then. Right? Literally, I get this phone call. Don't tell people our guy's going to vote the wrong way because he might vote right and you'll scare him to do the wrong thing. Right? I get this threat every day. So, what do I ask myself when they make this threat? What do I ask myself?
How do they benefit?
How does the politician benefit if I believe him? If I believe this, I better not tell this guy to support my Second Amendment rights because if I do, he'll vote against me. Right? And so if I think that and believe that, I won't call him. I won't make his political life difficult. Does that make sense? Yes. If I don't believe him, if I don't believe what he says, and I do what I know is right, tell everybody I know, all of my friends who support the Second Amendment, to call the senator and say, you better do the right thing on the bill coming up, right? We're watching, better do the right thing. Then he votes right. Anyway, we're going to get further into this. I know it's complicated. Are you still awake?
Yes.
Another excuse I hear. Our delegate is only doing the best with what she's got. I mean, she's a Republican, but she had to vote for against our repeal bill for SB 236. She had to vote that way, right? Don't you know? He can't vote with us, right? Even though he's the only Republican that votes wrong in committee, because he'll lose his next election. I don't care. You shouldn't care if he loses his next election. We don't elect people to do not what we want so they get reelected. It doesn't make sense. I know this is hard to see. Anybody know what this is? The food leads to salivation in the dog. Put the food in front of the dog, you get the slobber going. Then you ring the bell and no response, right? You ring the bell and the dog says, I don't know what to feel about this, so I'm just going to look at you because I'm hungry, right? Then you train the dog, right? When the dog's hungry, you give it food and ring the bell. In the dog's subconscious mind, the dog realizes that the bell comes when the food comes and starts to salivate when he hears the bell. This is what we must do with politicians. We must make politicians believe and understand and subconsciously fear voting the wrong way. I want them, and I'm working really hard to condition this in our politicians in Maryland. When they vote the wrong way, they should expect 50,000 people calling their office and yelling and screaming at them. It's unpleasant for them. I won't get into it too much because I'm speaking too long already, but politicians don't like to be yelled at. They really don't. They get offended. When I send an email, it says, Delegate McMillan, a Republican from Anne Arundel County, voted against our SB 236 repeal bill, voted to keep O'Malley's bill in place, right, that's killing farmers all over the state. He calls me and curses at me in a voicemail, right, telling me, you don't know what you're talking about. Right? I got the vote. He didn't say he didn't do it, but I don't know what I'm talking about. Why would you do that? Why would you call someone who sends robocalls by the 100,000 and leave me a voicemail with you cursing? That doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. But I digress again.
You've got 10 more minutes, Patrick. Don't rush.
Oh, I got a lot of material. I said, I speak for the Maryland Liberty Political Action Committee. I am the chairman of this organization. We're a new organization. I guess we've been around 8 months or 10 months or a year, something like that. And we've been very busy building a network of supporters of things that we share, right? Principles that we share. Constitutional republic, limited government, and a general disdain for the government trying to force us into boxes we don't want to go into. Figuratively, of course. Now, we want to train, mobilize, and elect in Maryland in order to achieve political change. The training point is evident. I want to give people who share our beliefs, I want to vet them first. I want to find people who agree with me and agree with you and give them the tools they need to win. I want to give them the knowledge base that they need to be successful. I want to help them mobilize their friends, and then I want to see people elected and beat the bad guys. This is the only way we're going to win. Now, the reason I bring this up here, a lot of our people, a lot of good people, get angry about politics. They listen to the radio, they watch Fox News, and they sit in front of the television and they get enraged. And their rage leads to nothing. Their rage leads to ulcers. Facebook posts. Oh, Twitter. These people complain. I don't like complainers because they don't accomplish anything. Right? This is what the politicians want you to believe. They want you to believe that complaining and doing nothing is how you achieve political change. But we know better. So what I do is I find those people who I know are really smart people, and I equip them with the tools. I empower them with the tools that they need to win elections, that they need to beat the bad guys. Now, all the while, I reserve the right to destroy their political careers if they vote the wrong way once they're elected, right? We have to do this. We have to hold our friends accountable. Any disagreement yet?
No.
Yes, ma'am.
I have a question.
Please.
While you're doing this, do you also intend to limit their term? And I'm thinking month to month, because if they don't do it this month, I don't think they have a year or two.
Yes, ma'am. That's a good question. That's a good question.
Right here now, as soon as you're not listening to us, that's the problem.
That's a democracy, and we don't want a democracy. I appreciate the question, but we don't want a democracy. No, it is. That's what you're saying then, is we should replace the guy as soon as he blinks wrong. If a principled senator voted against the new restrictions on assault weapons in Connecticut after the Sandy Hook shooting, the people there would go and carry them out of power, and then you lose all your rights, right? The reason we have elections is because we send people to represent us. But you're making me get off topic. Speed cameras. 3 of the big things the Maryland Liberty PAC is currently working on. Speed cameras in Maryland. They are a small step away from the vehicle mileage tax in Maryland, which is saying, the government saying you drive that 10,000 miles, you have to pay this much, 11,000, you have to pay this much on your mileage, because they're not getting the same money, because our cars are more fuel efficient today. We're going to repeal speed cameras in Maryland. It's going to take years. It's going to take years. It's going to take a lot of work, and it's going to take a lot of time. But I'm patient, and these people hate to get calls from my friends. They really do. And we will repeal speed cameras in Maryland. But I don't want to talk about that yet. O'Malley's septic ban, right? Remember, raise your hand if you remember SB 236 from last year. SB 236 says that the government can regulate with the total maximum daily load. It bans all the septics, requires fancy, best available technology. It's going to increase the cost of building a house by $50,000 over 10 years. Incredible cost, and killing farmers in the process. Literally, I saw people crying in Annapolis, farmers crying because they couldn't build a house on their farm because of this bill. This is the one that McMillan voted against repealing it in committee, his committee, where he saw the guy crying. And the other thing that you are very interested in is O'Malley's gun ban bill. Now, this is not a fight that I wanted to take on. This is never something I wanted to do, because in a perfect world, we don't have to go out and defend our rights, to protect ourselves and our families and own all the firearms that we wish to own. But Maryland has never been accused of being perfect. Now, O'Malley's gun ban, we've heard Bob talked about all the 77. How many bills are they up to now?
79.
79 bills have been introduced. Most of them curtail your freedom rather than improving it. I think there might be a couple of them that say that concealed carry holders can carry to a school and a church or whatever, but very few of them are like this. Most of them are big restrictions. The big components of O'Malley's gun ban bill are on the screen. You have the licensure requirement. It says that any handguns, or they call them assault rifles, right, a semi-automatic rifle that's on their list, will have to be licensed, or you'll have to be licensed in order to own it. You'll have to go and ask the government for permission, and you can be denied, right, to own a gun that you can own. It doesn't make any, it's really hard for me to fathom, but this is that you already own, right? And if you don't get the license, you got to get rid of your guns. Sir.
That's an ex post facto law. You can't do that.
I concur. So next, they're going to ban the sale and manufacture of assault rifles. So these semi-automatic rifles we're talking about, if they're in the state of Maryland, they say that you don't have to worry about it. But then they say, we already know you have them, right? Because in Maryland, you have to go through the state to buy it. Currently, you have to go through the state to buy the gun. They say the whole time, we don't keep records of that. That would be illegal for us, because there's a law that says they can't do that. But they have been. They have been keeping records, and the state senator, the chairman of the Judiciary Committee, says as much. They've been keeping records illegally, so they know the guns that you've been buying through the state police. Gets better. They want to limit the size of magazines that you can own in the state of Maryland, that you can buy. They say they're not going to take the ones you currently have, but they make it so you can't buy, sell, or manufacture a magazine larger than 10 magazines. Yes, sir.
Actually, some of the bills, not the governor's bill, but some of them make it a felony to possess more than 10 magazines.
Very good. What he said was some of the bills that they put in are making a felony to possess the 10-round magazine, like they did in New York State. They made it a felony in the state of New York to own a 7-round magazine. Or 10-round magazine, but 7's the most.
So you already
If you already have it.
Okay, I'm running out of time. All right. And requires 16 hours of training in order to get the license. So, what happened so far?
How does the state make federal law?
All right, so, yes, good point. No, all good points. I'm talking facts, and we can have all these very good discussions later. Okay, so what happened so far? Bill got introduced by all the gun grabbers, and they had a hearing in the Senate. Senate Bill 281. People showed up from all over the place. They heard the bill. It's window dressing, right? All these hearings are window dressing for them. They do all the stuff they're going to do. They voted the bill out of committee. The next step is to go to the Senate floor, which is likely to happen in the next 2 or 3 days, right? Senate President Miller says that he wants to have a vote on this before Friday. Of note, Jim Brochin, a state senator representing District 42 in the Timonium or so area of Baltimore County, is a Democrat who received the vehement support of many people who thought they were very smart, many very conservative people who thought they were very smart and voting for the pro-gun Democrat in the legislature. Now, these people are the people who criticize me for calling these or sending these robocalls into their district. He voted for the gun grab bill in committee. He's going to vote for it on the floor unless we do something about it, which brings up what I've been doing.
Patrick, was that the same guy who got caught playing chess on his computer?
That was Senator Jamie Raskin, but that is a good one.
Sorry.
So we've been running these ads on Facebook. 600,000 people in the state of Maryland have seen this ad on Facebook. They've clicked it, and I've had 4,000 people sign my petition to stop this stuff. In the last 2 days, maybe you've seen this number in an email from me, we sent 100,000 robocalls into the legislative districts of the 10 senators that we have targeted that we need in order to kill this bill. 10 senators that we need to vote right in order to kill SB 281 on the Senate floor. 6 of them called me and said, "You can't tell my people this. You can't tell them this. Well, of course we're going to vote right." And so, when we hear these things, what do we say?
How do they benefit?
How do they benefit if I believe them? Right? And so we doubled down. We turned up the rate of calls, right? We also got pressure from the most prominent gun group in the state of Maryland. The most prominent gun group in the state of Maryland sent me an email.
What is that group?
Sent me an email and said, "Stop calling these senators. Listen, these guys are our friends. They're going to do what we want. Stop calling them. They're getting mad." So let's process what happened here. So the senators got mad, and they realized that I wasn't going to answer their phone calls. All the times they called me, begging me to stop sending the calls. So then they called their friend, the head of the most prominent gun group in the state of Maryland.
Who was that?
I'd rather not say. And then he tried to get me to stop sending the calls. He was effectively lobbying against you. Right? He was saying, "Listen, don't call these guys and tell them the way to vote. They're going to do the right thing. We got to be their friends." Literally, he said, by having voters call them, they're less likely to vote our way.
So they're in the business of punishing people? Is that what you're saying?
I don't know what he was saying. It didn't make any sense when I read his email. And so I dialed up, I wrote him. I said, "Which senator said he was going to vote against us if we keep calling?" And he didn't respond.
Good.
Because I was going to turn him up further on him. Because they're lying. It doesn't make a lick of sense. If people are calling me from my district angry and irate that I'm going to vote the wrong way on the bill, why would I threaten to vote the wrong way on the bill? Because most people believe it. Most people. This is what I was talking about, empowering people. I empower people with this experience that we've seen to do the right thing when pressed with power plays from politicians. I apologize. So then the other component of the Maryland Liberty PAC is electing. Top to bottom campaign machines. We find candidates, we vet them, we find out how much we agree with them, and then we help them get elected. We run their campaigns top to bottom. We run their campaigns. We build their websites. We want to make sure that candidate's job is their only job is to talk to voters and raise money. Because those are the two things that the candidate can do better than anybody else. And we will win. Oh, Republican or Democrat? Are we a Republican group? Are we a Democrat group? No. No, we were literature dropping the last 4 weekends in a row in Baltimore City, and Maggie McIntosh, the chair of the Environmental Matters District, because she's the chairman of the committee that sees our speed camera bill. And she doesn't want to have a vote on it. And so, if we found a good Democrat that supported repealing speed cameras, I wouldn't have any problem helping them beat the chair of the Environmental Matters Committee in Annapolis. We don't need applause. This costs a lot of money to do this, right? I want you to keep this in mind. So the things I want you to walk away from here are, when a politician tells you something, now, they're not always lying, but you have to consider how you react, how you would act if you believe them, and therefore, how does that impact what they tell you? They're not always lying, because there are some good ones out there, but you have to consider what would you do if you believe them. And the other thing is, everything that we do costs money. Everything that we do costs time, and everything that we do is not free. I don't mean the Liberty PAC, I mean everything that we do as people. And so when you're considering what you're going to do with your political action or with your time, with your family, consider that everything you do has a cost. A little bit of time to make those calls when you get an email from a person you know is good saying, call your senator, call your representative. If all you can do is make those 10 phone calls, it goes a long way. If all you can do, what do you got? Email. Right. If all you can do is run for office and commit your life to it, that's all you can do. Right? We need all kinds of help. I encourage you to take to light all the things that Mr. Milano said about the stormwater fee that's going to be imposed. Consider how we can fight it. If you're interested in fighting it, talk to one of the people who are leaders here. Let's organize. We can't do all the work ourselves. We can't do it all ourselves. We can't do it all ourselves. And so we need to collaborate on these things. If you're interested in working on them, we can find something to do. I can help empower you with the tools needed to succeed. That make sense? Question. Ask me about guns. Joe.
What is the website of this Liberty PAC?
The Maryland Liberty Political Action Committee's website is marylandliberty.org. And we have been so profligate in our activities that you can just put Maryland Liberty into the Google search and we're like the top 10 pages there. So poke around there if you're interested. Sir?
Are you working with Maryland Shall Issue on the lobbying, or is that the group that you're rather not say?
Maryland Shall Issue...
Because they've organized demonstrations.
They're a very tenacious group. They've got about 40,000 people on their email list. But I have found out in recent days that they don't subscribe to the same political philosophy as I do. But we'll work with them. I'm always willing to work with people on projects, right? Always willing to work with people on projects. Any more questions? Please, ask me questions. I want to know you're still awake. Guns.
Where would, I don't want to get off subject, but where are we still with the concealed carry in the middle of all this? Spiegel, Delegate Spiegel, he's kind of like a...
So, Spiegel put a bill in to repeal the good and substantial clause in the Maryland State Code, which would say that in order to have a concealed carry permit, right, you can get it. Right? Now, you have to prove a good and substantial reason in order to get it. You have to prove to the Maryland State Police that you have a good reason to have a gun, rather than the other way around, having a right to have it and telling them you're going to be carrying it. Right? That's the ideal situation. Sir?
I was just going to say, are we sure that the main bill is not just a distraction and they're going to push some other bill, kind of like Bob was saying? There's 79 total, you know what I mean, under the radar.
The question was, are we sure that SB 281 is the bill that they're going to try to pass? The answer to that question is generally yes. Generally, they're trying to fix this bill. Mike Miller, the Senate President, said he doesn't like gun licensing. He went so far as to say, I'm 70 years old. Now, this is the Senate President who's been in there for like 30 years. Like, he's been the Senate President for longer than I've been alive. Literally. I turned 27 last Saturday, so it's the case. No. Okay. So he said, he's the Senate president, he said, I will go to Virginia to buy a gun before I let the state fingerprint me. The Senate president, and this is in the bill. So it's likely that'll get stripped. He doesn't like the licensing requirement, but we need to keep on this. We need to pay attention, and we need to, the big thing here, watch how they vote on amendments. The biggest phone calls I got for Senator Dyson from the House, whatever committee he was on, he called and he said, I've always supported the Second Amendment. I'm so angry with you for lying to my constituents. Watch how they vote on the amendments. You'll see emails from us. There's amendments to the bills. They'll say, for example, let's strike the assault weapons ban from the bill. Let's strike the magazine limit from the bill. The Republicans, some of their good Republicans, are putting these in. Watch how the bad Democrats vote. Watch how the bad Republicans vote on the amendments. The amendments matter as much as the bill. We like to look at the top roll call number, 14 to 30. We like to look at that. But the fact is, there's 25 or 30 votes that go before there's a bill that passes. And each one of those means they voted to take away your Second Amendment rights. All right? Does it make sense? I know it's late. Did it process? Yeah. The Maryland Liberty Political Action Committee is not going away. Right? 10 years we're going to commit to repealing speed cameras, and I hope we get it done a lot sooner. Joe's the treasurer. That's why he brought it up. He's our treasurer of our pack. Thank you, Joe. Yes.
So we have a couple things going on the 1st of March and the 5th.
Oh, yes, very good. On the March 1st, this Friday, are the first House committee hearings on SB 281, the equivalent of SB 281 in the House. It's the analog bill on the House side. If you're interested, I can get you some information, or he can get you some information. Anybody can get you. We got a lot of good people with information on this. On the 5th of March is they're scheduled a rally in Annapolis to go for the Senate. What's going on that day? Why is the reason for that? There's another rally on March the 5th. I'll send you an email with information about that if we have your email address. If we don't, make sure we do. And
the repeal the speed thing is on March 5th also.
March 5?
March 5.
If you want to come testify to repeal speed cameras in Maryland, I can give you the tools to be successful doing that. On March 5th. Yes?
I heard we defeated the fine. They were going to double the fine.
Talk about that. Scott's going to bag his talk.
He's Hartford County.
That's worth talking about.
Yeah, definitely.
So, Delegate Susan McComas, right? Everybody knows Delegate Susan McComas? Yeah. District 35B. 5B. Republican delegate, represents the town of Bel Air and the surrounding area. She introduced a bill that we found out through the website, right? We looked up speed camera laws that would double the amount of the fine for speed cameras in Maryland from $40 to $80 per ticket, and would allow them to be put anywhere in the state of Maryland, not just in work zones and school zones as it is. And so we write her and say, you need to repeal this bill. It doesn't make any sense. We find out that she has an intern working for her that drafted this bad bill. And she introduced it, put her name on it, sponsored it. So we worked in collaboration, the Maryland Liberty PAC worked in collaboration with the Maryland Campaign for Liberty organization that sent an email saying, Susan McComas, what are you doing? Right? There's no Republican that voted for this in the House when it came through, in the Senate in 2009 when it was approved, but you're doubling the fine. The immediate response was, we'll think about it. Listen, guys, this is a big deal. This is going to improve it. This is going to make it so it's only about safety and not about money. We're going to make it so it's only about safety. This will improve it because now they'll be everywhere. Nobody will have anywhere to speed.
You can't put lipstick on a pig.
And so we sent a second follow-up email after she said, I need a couple days to think about it. And then she pulled the bill, saying there was bad stuff in there. Our intention was not to do what this bill did, and pulled it. This is a big deal. This means that pressure works.
Yeah.
Maybe she meant well, but she put a bad bill in with her name on it.
That's not what you said on the Tom.
Yes.
I guess my question would be...
Hold on, order.
My question would be, have Marylanders ever experienced the strategy that you are now doing?
Cindy's question was, has anybody in Maryland ever tried to implement the strategy that the Maryland Liberty PAC is implementing, right? Not taking access, instead punching people in the face when they vote wrong, politically speaking. And the answer is not that I'm aware. I've never seen it from any Republicans. However, the left does it all the time. Now, go on any progressive website and look how they treat their Democrats that vote conservatively. Look how they abuse them. They whip them into shape. We're going to do that for liberty. We're going to whip the politicians into shape for liberty. John?
Yes, it has happened. It happened here. The county property tax rate was reduced twice. The cap was reduced once. When Mr. DeLong talked about economic development, he forgot to mention, or didn't mention, the James Run tip. You know, on the equivalent tip, the Peachtree tip, all county council members unanimously voted for the Peachtree tip. On the James Run tip, 3 county council members voted against it. Up until the very last moment, it looked like 5 were going to vote against it. Now, for some reason, 2 switched their votes. It could have been the people involved with the James Run Limited Development and all the other corporations that may have ties to the Senate and the House and some of the lobbyists that might be running around Annapolis. But it has worked. It did work. If you look at that James Run tip tape and you listen to Councilman McMahon's explanation of what happened, he got that information from somebody. And he said it's a stinking bill.
Thank you, John. So the model works, right? By going and putting pressure directly on the politician. They don't want to do this, right? Because they'll say, that's not how you're going to influence me. You're not going to tell me how to vote. You're just a voter. I'm a politician, right? What do we think when they tell us these things? How does the politician benefit if I believe them? Yes? Yes, I know you're falling asleep, but I want you to understand that. I want you to remember it. You had a question, ma'am.
Yeah, what is the best way to get your opinion across? Is it calling your office or petitions? I get petitions every day I sign, and I send them out to everybody to sign.
The question was, what's the best way to influence the politician's vote? What's the best way to get your message across? The question was, is it phone calls or personal communication or a petition? The answer is yes. Right? The answer is they need to hear from you. They need to hear from you on the telephone. They need to see you. They need to know that you go to the same church as them. They need to know that it's going to be very uncomfortable for them to vote the wrong way. And until they know that, they will do the wrong thing over and over again. Now, I was thinking about this while I was driving here. The Republican Party has done a pretty good job of making it very uncomfortable for Republicans to do some things, right? Pretty good job of making it uncomfortable for politicians to support raising taxes. A pretty good job of making it uncomfortable for politicians to support taking away your guns. Pretty good, right? Think about that. That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to make it so that politicians, it's very difficult for them politically to do the things we don't want them to do. Does that make sense? Yeah. Very good. Is there any more questions? Do you need anything, Lowell?
I'm just going to close the meeting by saying when our next meeting is.
I'm done.
Right, I think there's one more question.
Oh, yes,
what happens when we lose our Second Amendment?
Good, thank you, Chuck. So, the Second Amendment, right, says that you have a right to keep and bear arms, right? The general rule, the general idea is that it makes sense for people to be able to defend themselves and their communities from any threat. Whether the threat is internal or external, it makes sense because, well, it was a country founded by revolution. When you take away the right to defend yourself, you take away the rest of the Bill of Rights and the rule of law and the defense of the courts and all the different systems. Maybe it's a political faux pas to say so, but I'm not giving my guns to any government.
Amen.
Thank you.
we are just going to wrap up the meeting. Scott DeLong's been very, very gracious in saying that he will hold his talk until the March meeting. If you've never heard Scott DeLong speak, or if you've never heard Dave Pridgeon speak, or some of these people here, don't miss next meeting. I don't know whether Tom DeLuise will be here next meeting or whatever, but it'll be good, it'll be pertinent, it'll be important. Hopefully you've taken away some things to do. Where do they go for this pack? It's MarylandLiberty.org?
Yes, sir.
And that's Maryland is spelled out?
Yes, sir.
Okay, Maryland, the full word, liberty.org. We have our own website, HartfordLiberty.org. Right? Am I saying that right?
Yes, sir.
Check out things that are there. We will post the kind of things that John is talking about. Thank you, John, for being part of the meeting tonight. And Vicki and all the people here, Joe, thank you for that. So, when's our next meeting? The fourth Tuesday of March, which happens to be also on the 26th, because this is February and has 28 days, so all the calendar dates are the same for March. If you never knew that happened. But anyway, so it's next month on the 26th. Come back here. Thank you for coming, and bring somebody next time. Thanks.